I came to Thailand with the intention of learning more about human trafficking from a global standpoint. I had heard time and time again during my research that Thailand was essentially the sex capital of the world. And I wanted to know what that looked like. But it was absolutely insane because here I was committed to learning about human trafficking, but I had no idea I was realizing and witnessing just half of the issue. I thought it only happened to women. And it was this huge realization and a huge jolt to my system when I finally was face-to-face with young teen boys providing services to essentially male Western sex tourists who were here with the intention of having sex with teen boys.
There's been some research in Cambodia entitled "I Never Thought It Could Happen to Boys," because frankly people don't believe it happens to boys here either. It's hard for people to get their head around it. When we did research with children, they also said, oh no, they laugh when we said boys can be sexually abused. And of course that's the problem, because when boys try and say, well, something's happened to them, nobody really believes them that it's happened.
The demand for boys is increasing. But with boys, most of the people that come, particularly foreigners, the boys are around the streets, so they're very accessible. Boys are not kept such a tight rein on and with supervision from the family. So the boys could be selling books down the riverside or can be in the tourist areas of Siem Reap and Phnom Penh. And so a man can just approach a young boy and offer him $5 and maybe say, I'd come and have an ice cream or a hamburger or something, and the boy will go with him.
I just remember walking so vividly through the Red Light District and seeing tons of girls everywhere, but then going down this one alley and seeing just an endless amount of young teen boys.
In my PhD research, which looked at Cambodian children's experiences and understandings of violence and abuse, we found that nearly 1 in 5 boys said that they had been sexually abused. And now these were boys that we interviewed between 12 and 15, and they said that they've been sexually abused by an adult, they've been touched on the genitals by an adult since they were 9. So this is, it just seems like this is a really big problem, but it's just a very hidden problem. People don't want to talk about it.
When walking through the bars, there's just one type of clientele that always stands out, and it's always white, middle-aged Western men. And from the men that I've spoken to, a lot of them are expats, or what I call sexpats, living here. They retire here and they get their pension, and with that pension they're able to live a very cushy life that allows them the ability to be able to go into the bars every single night and rent out these boys. And so you have the sexpats, but then you also have the men who every year save their money and then travel here for 2-3 months, and that's essentially something that they look forward to their entire year, so that they can live essentially a double life.
In the research that we've done, we've really just only looked at really the tip of the iceberg, because the boys who are accessible, and when I say boys I actually mean young men, because it's this age group between 14 and 22, we found that most of the boys, the reasons why they get involved are not so different from the girls. They usually have to be involved because they need money for their family. Nobody does it for fun.
My number one goal when I came to the city was to get work, so I could send money back home to help my family. But being with the customers didn't come naturally. I'm straight, but the customers at the bar are gay. So to make money, you go home and sleep with them.
I think that for boys, the family obligation is survival. The families are very poor. The boys are out trying to beg on the street, maybe sell small things on the street, maybe collect rubbish. Often they are selling books in the tourist areas, but the need is for survival for the family. And in Cambodian culture, there's a very strong obligation to support the family. Children are expected to help provide for the family. And so I think for boys, if they can earn $5, then that's a lot of money that they could take for their family, and it might mean that their younger siblings can have food tomorrow.
A lot of the boys, what they do is at a very young age, they leave school, and education is not a priority. What's a priority is making money so that they can be able to build a better house and to have essentially food on the table. So a lot of these boys say, you know what, I'm just going to go to the city and take on my responsibility as a good son. And so that's what pushes them into the city. And so it's that drive to be able to provide money back home that the families kind of depend on. So they look at these boys as, you know what, I'm gonna sacrifice one son, but I'll be able to protect and to help the rest of my children. So a lot of these boys see themselves as that sacrificial son that is just gonna be able to have to endure what they have to do to better their family and their legacy.
The customers are all different. Some of them are nice, some of them aren't. Some treat us well. Sometimes they act like we don't know what's going on, and they just won't pay. None of the customers have really harmed me. But I've met customers who wanted to force me to do things I didn't want to do, but I didn't do it.
A lot of times the boys would say, you know what, I'm here because I don't want my younger brother or my younger sister to have to do what I'm doing. So there is that huge weight on their shoulder to be able to protect their siblings as well.
I did research in Sri Lanka. One of the quotes from the children there, they said, children don't do sex with adults for pleasure. So there's a myth that goes around that, you know, these girls and boys, it's all just a game and it's just good fun. And of course it isn't at all. It's just not. This is serious exploitation, and we have to take it seriously.
I grew up in a village a few hours from Chiang Mai. My dad died when I was 12, and it was very difficult for my mother to support my 3 sisters and me. So my older sister quit school when she was in grade 6 to come work in Chiang Mai. At the time, she was 16. She found work in a karaoke bar, so she was able to send money back to the family. For several years, she helped pay for my schooling. But when I finished grade 9, I had to quit school too. My family was too poor for me to continue. Since I couldn't go back to school, I decided to go to the city to try to find work. The plan was for me to come to Chiang Mai and send money back home like my sister, but I couldn't find a real, solid job. Then some guys I hung out with told me about their work at the bars. They invited me to go with them. I was curious about what they did, so I decided to join them. That night, the guys told me how to act in the bar and how to meet the customers. Basically, they taught me how to get the guys to like you and want to take you and sleep with you. An older man from my village was the one who really taught me about this. I saw guys who were older and younger than me. They were sitting and drinking with the Westerners. I wondered if I could do it too. That night I tried it. I was definitely scared at first. But then I got used to it, because I could make good, easy money, and it was fast. The money could really vary, from about $3 to about $1,000. But on average, customers would give me a little over $30. This was drastically different than what I'd make in my village. To make that same $30 back home, I'd have to work long hours for many days. I might work all day with bricks and only make $1, $2, maybe $3. But being with the customers didn't come naturally. I'm straight, but the customers at the bar are gay. So to make money, you go home and sleep with them. Some of the men, well, a lot of them, come because they want to have sex. You meet them at the bars, and if they like you, they take you out, and you just go with them. The other boys I worked with would go with the customers, and they do everything, whatever the customer asked for. But for me, I would only do the hand job. The customers are all different. Some of them are nice, some of them aren't. Some treat us well. Sometimes they act like we don't know what's going on, and they just won't pay. None of the customers have really harmed me, but I've met customers who want to force me to do things I didn't want to do. But I didn't do it. A few of my friends have been lucky, because they've gotten Westerners to support them, adopt them, and give them everything they want. They treat them like a boyfriend. Some of the customers are very, very rich, and they just don't know what to do with their money. There was one customer I knew. He said he was from the United States, and he was in his 70s. He had a lot of money. He would always carry over 3K. If the boys knew he was coming, they would just sit and wait for him. 8, 9, 10 guys would just sit and wait for him. 4 or 5 guys would give him a massage, and he would give $100 or more to each one. That's the same guy that gave me $1,000 to sleep with him. Yeah, it's true that I earned a lot of money working at the bars, but I couldn't save it. One reason I couldn't save the money was because all my friends were drug addicts and alcoholics, and I did what my friends did. I would spend all the money I made in one night, then the next day wouldn't have any money for food. This way of life became a huge problem. My number one goal when I came to the city was to get work, so I could send money back home to help my family. But when I got here, I lost my intention. I forgot all of that because I got caught up in city life. This happened to so many of my friends from the village too. And once we started to make money here, life didn't seem to get any easier. I could make $100 a day or so, but I would spend it all on drugs or gambling. The nights that I earned money, I would go and rent a hotel room to sleep. If I didn't make money, I would sleep in the bar. I'd constantly feel exhausted. I was so tired, and I just wanted to stop this kind of work. Enough with this kind of life. I was so done, but I couldn't stop. I didn't know how to make money any other way. I kept thinking, I can't make this much money any other way. I'm trapped.
For 4 years, I worked as an undercover investigator on behalf of 2 organisations, 2 human rights groups, posing as a customer, as a sex tourist, a pedophile, a John, going into the brothels and the go-go bars and the gentlemen's clubs in more than 12 countries around the world. My first assignment happened by accident, actually. I was working as a volunteer just to find out about one of the organisations that I ultimately ended up working for. And I was in Southeast Asia, and even before we had put our mission plan together, I was asked to go down to the local market and purchase a bag so that we could hide some of our equipment in it. And I was down there in the market, and as is often the way, white Caucasian male in that part of the world propositioned numerous times in the process of looking for this bag. And there were a number of men who came up to me and said, "You want girl, you want girl?" And I said, "No, no, no." Surrounded by go-go bars and brothels. But there was this one guy who came up to me and he said, "You want girl?" I said, "No." He said, "Oh, what about boy? You want boy?" And it was just that word that caught my attention, and I said, "Oh, boy, wow, how old? What do you mean by boy?" And he said, whatever you want, I can get you 6-year-old. And so I said, "Oh, okay." And I again just pretended to be nervous, but in fact I was nervous. You know, I was suddenly on at a time when I didn't expect to be on. And so I just pulled him aside and pretended that I was really afraid that someone would hear what I was saying. And I was giving every indication of what I imagined someone in this situation would look like. They're afraid. They're about to talk about having sex with a 6-year-old boy. So again, I pretended to be really nervous, really afraid, almost unwilling to even have this conversation. But in a little corner of this man said, "I can get you a 6-year-old boy, 7-year-old boy, whatever you want." So we made a time to come back the following day. So I rushed back to the hotel where we were staying and got all of my equipment ready, and had a covert camera, so that when I came back the next day to meet him, I was prepared. And he took me for a drive about 20-30 minutes through the city, and we came to a house. He led me up the path, and out of the door came a 6-year-old boy, and a 7-year-old boy, and a 9-year-old boy. They were 3 brothers. And again, I just went through in my mind what I imagined someone looking to have sex with boys, how they would behave. I was super friendly. I had already bought some candy, so I passed out the candy and shook their hands, big smiles, pretended to be very excited. But again, in doing so, made sure that I was capturing their faces and finding out their names and getting all of that on camera. And then paying him cash to have sex with those boys and making sure that that transaction was captured on video and that he was very clear and spelt it out to me, not only what I could do sexually with the boys, but also their experience. Because I said, you know, like, do these boys even know what they're doing? And sadly, tragically, he said, you know, these boys are very experienced. He said, every day men come from United States, Japan, Korea. These boys know what they are doing, basically. So I then made up a cover story as to why I wasn't going to actually have sex with them there and then in that place, and I left. And that information was then passed on to the local authorities, who then intervened. So for me, that was my first encounter with the sexual exploitation of children in that most horrific form, and it happened really by accident. I was nervous. Again, I was afraid of making a mistake. I mean, these were little boys who were being horribly exploited, and I guess I felt the weight of responsibility that actually this might be the one time where someone can get enough evidence to set them free. So I was nervous, not so much for the role that I was playing or where I was going, but actually that I would do it right, and that I would do what was necessary to get enough evidence so that they could be rescued.
I had been working in the bars for 4 years and was so tired. And then my friends told me about a center called Urban Light. They'd go there for English classes and to have a place to hang out during the day. I decided to go with them one day. And now the center is like my second home. I come here every day. Before Urban Light, I'd go out every night drinking, taking drugs, working the bars. I've stopped all that because I wanted to make a change for my future.
So Urban Light, we work with teen boys from the Red Light District, providing them with services and supports that will empower them so that they can seek new opportunity outside the Red Light District.
I'm so grateful for Alex, the founder of Urban Light. First, she gives me love. Besides giving me love, she sent me to school and provided a place for me to sleep. I am learning English and loving my studies. She does so much to help us boys. I want to be someone who can help her, to give back because of all she has given to me.
And sometimes, like any other teen in the world, they just need a little bit of push and a little bit of support. And with that, they can thrive and they can succeed. And that's what keeps me going, is that hope to see them become something that they don't see themselves doing. So whether it's working in a barbershop or working in a hotel or in a restaurant or being a singer, they're so smart and they're so brilliant, they just don't see it. So we're here to really be the mirror to them so that they can eventually see that reflection for themselves.
Before, I just left people alone. But since I've been at Urban Light, I know what's going on. I know why I exist, and I really care for other people. I care for the boys at the center. I try to talk with them and encourage them. I have my goals, but it's not at all clear. I'm still figuring it out. But today, I'm just focusing on living a good life. I see myself as someone who's tired of life in the bars. I feel like I'm recovering, so I am taking it a day at a time.
One thing that Urban Light really strives to do is to be that force of love behind them, because we see that if they don't know what love is, if they don't experience healthy love, then how are they ever going to be a powerful and strong mentor or role model for the younger generation? And the younger generation need to see what that healthy love is, because that's how they become vulnerable. That's how they become young people that could possibly be exploited by these men who show love through money, and they're not able to distinguish money for love and what real love is. So we see that as something that we're really trying to bring upon these boys and to let them know that they do have worth.
I'm passionate about seeing that life that was so broken and there was no hope. I'm really passionate about seeing that person released to be the person that they were designed to be, that God designed them to be.
You know, in some ways you could think, well, it just seems so big and it seems so crazy that, you know, what on earth can we do? But I believe that it's significant for every person that we talk to, that every single person, it makes a difference.
I think the biggest thing for people to know and to understand is that they can absolutely be a part of the solution. A lot of times we live in kind of capsules and boundaries, and a lot of people say, well, you know what, I live in the US, therefore I'm only going to focus on US issues. And I really want to encourage people to consider themselves and look at themselves rather as global citizens and to take on this world as their own. Anybody can do it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And so I don't want people to put limitations on themselves. Travel, volunteer, find your passion, and really commit yourself to standing behind a cause.
And in the end, we believe that light overcomes darkness and that the darkness will be pushed out. So that's our hope for the future.